Yeah, but I don't need it. I just type. That one's nice. It's like- I'll take this one back then. But you can use that this one. Yeah.
Alrighty. It is officially 4:30 and it still is December 5th, 2023. We are the Carmel-by-the-Sea City Council. Nova, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barron?
Here.
Councilmember Jermoff? Here. Councilmember Ferlito?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Here.
Mayor Potter?
Here.
All are present.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Now I'm stuck again.
Please begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here, here. Well done.
Well done.
That was the best one ever.
The most enthusiastic pledge we've had in here in years. Thank you very much. Well done.
That was quite something.
Alrighty, well, let's get on to the extraordinary business. Jeff, you as our MST representative, would you like to introduce Michelle?
Thank you, Dave. One of the perks of my job as being a council member is sitting on the boards of various outside community agencies. And I remember discovering this fact 5 years ago this month, right after the 2018 election, when the mayor and the city administrator, who of course knew about these appointments, assigned me to the board of Monterey Salinas Transit. The experience of being a board member of MST is a good one for two reasons. First is the realization that there are other elected officials in Monterey County who are just like those of us that sit up here, from small or medium-sized towns, and dedicated to not only doing right by their own town, but doing right by the county as a whole, working together to, in this case, build a better community by building a better bus network. The second reason is that, like our own city staff, the staff of MST is caring, professional, and frankly, good at what they do. And the opportunity to view a second organization of staff members, in addition to our staff that sits here with us tonight, has been an invaluable way for me to become a better council member. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Michelle Overmeyer to present MST's annual update. Ms. Overmeyer is the Director of Planning and Innovation at MST and coordinates transit planning with the 13 jurisdictions served by the bus company, as well as our innovative partnerships with the local community colleges and CSU Monterey Bay. From 2020 to 2022, she managed MST's comprehensive operational analysis, and in December of last year, she oversaw the implementation of the resulting Better Bus Network. Welcome, Michelle.
Welcome,
Thank you so
Michelle.
much. I think I might come more often if all your meetings are this lively. It's exciting that you have a great audience here. Thank you for that introduction. Mayor, council members, Michelle Overmeyer with Monterey Salinas Transit. MST is the sole public transit operator in the county, and we're a special district with a governing board that's comprised of one member from the Board of Supervisors and one member from each of the city councils, and Councilmember Barron is your city's representative. Our mission is advocating and delivering quality public transportation as a leader within our community and within our industry. Our brand vision is connecting communities, creating opportunity, and being kind to our planet. We carry just over 2 million passengers in the fiscal year that ended in June. We recently completed a passenger survey. This is something we do every 2 years. The majority of the bus riders are low-income and minority populations. Bus riders travel for many reasons, and many of them take more than one trip per day. Most riders are going to work, to school, shopping, or medical appointments. People use MST because they have no car, or they're unable to drive, or because it's cheaper than driving. The price of gas these days. We asked our customers how they would travel if MST was not available. The largest group would get a ride from a family member. Nearly 20% just wouldn't take the trip at all. They wouldn't travel. And the remainder would take Uber, Lyft, taxi, walk, bike, or drive themselves. So this shows a map of the city and the 3 fixed routes that extend within the city. Lines 5, 91, and 94 provide transit service within the city of Carmel. We took a deeper dive into transit for Carmel-by-the-Sea. The city sees about 94 passenger boardings per day on those 3 fixed route lines, and about 1 person per day gets on the Rides paratransit service. The 3 busiest bus stops are 6th and Mission, Junipero at 4th and 5th, and San Carlos at 7th. Transit activity is shown on this map. Boardings are where people get on the bus. Alightings are where people get off of the bus. The heaviest usage is the core of the city. And I wanted to highlight here on the top, number 5259, that bus stop, Junipero and 4th, is the subject of your business item number 3 tonight. And it shows up here as one of the top 5 most active locations in the city. So as a leader addressing the climate crisis, the state has set some aggressive goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the transportation sector specifically. By 2040, all of MST buses will need to be zero emissions. Currently, 100% of the big buses are using biofuel or renewable electricity. 74% of our passengers agree that reducing greenhouse gas emissions is important. And we'll be placing a bus order in the coming weeks for about 12 all-new electric buses, similar to the one here in this photo. Our primary service area is Monterey County, but we do have connections in Watsonville and Paso Robles. And as of October 30th, we started serving the Gilroy Caltrain station with commuter service. Our customers are very satisfied with our service. 91% of those surveyed consider our bus drivers to have good or excellent driving. This is higher than the national average of 73%. And then the biggest difference here is with cleanliness. 82% of MST customers found our buses to be clean. By contrast, it's only 38% nationwide. We also survey Monterey County residents who don't use the bus. Most are familiar with our service and feel that it's important and it's valuable to the community. They also acknowledge that funding public transit is important. So this is a snapshot of our budget this year. It's about $58 million. Most of that is coming from local, state, and federal sources. We do have a $4.5 million operating deficit this year. This is partially because ridership is still recovering from the pandemic, and our fare box recovery is not quite as high as it used to be. We're projecting about 5% this year. Before the pandemic, it was closer to 20%. So where does the money go? Most of it goes to labor and fuel. We spend about 20% on purchased transportation. So that's contracted service for the smaller buses that operate paratransit and some of the fixed route. 10% of our budget goes to fuel parts and supplies. And the remainder goes to expenses like consulting services, landscaping, janitorial services. About 22% of our operating budget comes from a local sales tax, Measure Q. This is dedicated to seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. It funds the Rides paratransit program, which is required under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And then it also funds a number of mobility programs that are listed there. Another sales tax program in Monterey County is administered by TAMC. This is TAMC is the umbrella agency for all transportation projects in the county. And the Measure X sales tax is a 3/8% sales tax, with the majority going to streets and roads. But MST does receive some of these funds for capital projects. It helped us fund our King City operations and maintenance facility, and it's also helping to fund the SURF busway and bus rapid transit project and some other capital projects we have in Salinas. We've had a lot going on since we last presented to your council. We opened that operations and maintenance facility in King City 2 years ago. We established the College Eco Smart Pass program. So college students at Hartnell, MPC, and CSUMB can all ride MST for free anytime, anywhere. We added a new way to pay your bus fare, so you don't have to have cash on you. We started a van pool program. And then, as Councilmember Barron mentioned, we did redesign the whole system, the Better Bus Network, about a year ago. So this new contactless fare payment system allows passengers to use their debit card, credit card, Apple Pay, Google Pay to pay for the bus ride. It's $2 to ride MST for 2 hours. The fares are capped out at $6 a day, $20 a week, or $70 a month. And with the contactless system, if you use the same card, it tracks it, and so your fares will be capped when you hit those amounts. Right now, we're seeing about 7% of our transactions using this new service. That's how it works. So we're coming up on 1 year of our Better Bus Network. This was a 2-year planning effort for MST. We did a lot of public engagement on redesigning the system and helping us recover from the pandemic. We redesigned the entire system, and timed transfers are the cornerstone of this new network. So all the buses pulse into the major transit hubs. We have Carmel Rancho, Monterey Transit Plaza, and Salinas Transit Center. People have about 5 minutes to change buses if they need to, and then the buses go back out into the system. And what is coming up? So we're not slowing down. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. We've outgrown our operations and maintenance facility in Salinas, so we're looking to expand that. We're also looking at our next phase of the transit network, and that's going to be Bus Rapid Transit in East Salinas. And then to transition to the zero emission fleet with the supporting infrastructure is going to require a lot of work and money. I'll talk a bit about the SURF project. I'm sure you've heard. We don't have carpool lanes in Monterey County, so the bus is stuck in the same congestion as regular traffic, and this causes delays for our passengers. And we're starting to see some of those timed connections break down, and people aren't making their connections to the next bus. So the SURF project will help relieve congestion on Highway 1 and make it easier for people that are doing that longer distance commute between the peninsula and Salinas. That is a rendering of what the project will look like, the busway. And then challenges and opportunities for MST. We have several positions, staff positions that are open. A shameless plug for me, I'll be hiring a planner, so please spread the word. There's a nationwide shortage of bus drivers, so it's not just affecting us, but we have applied some creative strategies to recruit. We have about $3,500 in bonuses to get people to drive the bus for us. The federal government dysfunction affects us too. If the government shuts down, that could impact our federal funding. We're working with peers in the industry to identify training opportunities to upskill our workforce for the zero emission transition. As each city has to increase its housing stock, and we've seen the state influence parking requirements, I think there's a good opportunity here to align land use and transportation. I'm leading a transit-oriented development, or TOD, planning study with city staff along the SURF corridor, and I think it's a model that could be replicated in other parts of the city, in the county, sorry. And then finally, I wanted to talk about SB 125 because this is a big issue for MST right now. The state budget this year included $5 billion to support existing transit operators in their recovery. And companies like MST do have a deficit, like I mentioned, $4.5 million. So this is an opportunity to help us fill that. And we go back to the legislative intent, and it's a perfect fit. But there is a challenge here with Monterey County's allocation of about $52 million, and TAMC will be deciding the fate of that tomorrow. So a lot of money can solve problems, solve problems, but it can also create problems too, because there's demand. So I'll stop there. That's a lot of information, and I will answer any questions you have.
Michelle, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Jeff, good work.
Thank you.
Excellent idea, bringing it forward. Are there any questions by council members?
I just have a comment. Friday night at the tree lighting, I happened to see some people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and they said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, we're going to hear from MST and some other things." And they said, "We rode the bus to the tree lighting."
Nice.
And they live down at the south end of town. And they said they take the bus all the time, and it solves all their parking problems in town. So they wanted me to tell you that they enjoy taking the bus and that it really does serve them. He also has some physical disabilities at this point, so probably won't have his driver's license that much longer, and it really does provide a good service. So it's really nice to hear this report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, rode the bus with us.
Yep.
Everybody remembers that jingle.
Exactly. All right, well, thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. All right, why don't we move on then, the high school report out. Harper, where are you? There you are. Beautiful. How you been?
Hello. For those of you who don't know, I'm Harper. I'm the ASP president at ASP vice president at Carmel High. I just came out to give a little update on what's on the happenings at Carmel High. So our dance show was 2 nights ahead of our great Thanksgiving week off. It was a huge success, really great. A lot of our seniors showed off their capstone dances where they instruct the other dance students and get to create projects of their own. Winter sports are going really great. Wrestling, basketball, and soccer have all kicked off. Basketball, been to a couple games. It's been super awesome. I'd encourage all of you to go. It's really exciting. We have a really great team this year. CHS students are on a countdown until finals. We got one more week, and then finals week starts, so we're all buckling up, getting those grades up. It's been super busy. ASB hosted a gift drive last week, and I was able to take a trip over to Salinas to drop off those gifts. On Friday, we collected the gifts for the CASA gift drive, which is supports local foster youth, and we collected close to 300 gifts, and I was super proud of that because previous year we were around 280, 250, so seeing those numbers go up was really great. And yeah, it was really great opportunity to show how Carmel High's still involved in the philanthropy things. On that note, we also participated in Giving Tuesday last week as a campus. Card making, a lot of different activities all around. Different teachers hosted activities, different charities, things of that sort on Giving Tuesday. So students went around at lunch, participated in a bunch of different things, which is really cool. ASB is hosting a rummage sale of discontinued and old Carmel High merch at lunch tomorrow. So if you see some students wearing some merch from the years you guys might have graduated, don't fret. It's not because you forgot who they were. We're giving out some merch from the old years, which should be really cool. Our singer-songwriter concert was last week, and those are always a treat to see. We have some really talented artists at our school. And lastly, tryouts begin soon for our spring musical, Mean Girls, so that'll certainly be interesting. Thank you.
Harper, well done. Really appreciate your attendance. You're doing a great job.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, why don't we move in then public comments? Counselor, would you like to read the change rules?
Yes, I would, Mayor. Under the Brown Act, public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. Hateful, violent, and threatening speech is impermissible public comment as it disrupts the conduct of the public meeting. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending the meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements of the Brown Act, then that speaker will be muted.
Thank you, Counselor. That noted. Is there anybody wishing to speak today? If so, please come forward. You don't have to state your name for the record, but if you would, it'd be nice. Appreciate it.
Okay. My name is Polly Osborne. I'm an architect locally and the president of the local AIA. I'm very concerned right now about the Carmel Art Association. The foundation is being severely compromised, and the floor is sinking because of the pit next door. And to this, they have not been able to get the neighbor to shore up that. And I'm concerned about this historical building. I think the city should take action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the testimony. Is there anybody else?
Dear City of Carmel, we are the Carmel River School students of Room 6. We are in first grade and have been studying how to help a lost baby animal find its parents. We are writing to ask if you could have a wildlife rescue listed on the City of Carmel's website. We noticed you had things about dogs and marine mammals, but nothing about baby birds or other wildlife animals that might need help.
Duet.
Could you please post information about the SPCA Wildlife Rescue? Earlier this school year, a seagull was injured. The adults at our school didn't know what to do. Luckily, Mrs. Benz knew the number of the SPCA Wildlife Rescue. We think posting the number of the SPCA Wildlife Rescue on your website would help others in this situation. Sincerely, the first graders of Room 6.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And most impressive. Really, it's good to see you participating in civic responsibilities early on. And hopefully we'll see you again. Do come and join us in the pledge. That was epic. Really appreciate it. All right. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight?
Hi, my name is Jeanette Burgot, and following that, I just wanted to make everybody aware, especially the kids in the room, that when you're having a hard emotion, physical violence is never the answer. I think that everybody would agree with that. I am a holistic wellness coach, and I've been in and out of town the last few weeks working with a friend that in September got into a altercation with Chip, the city administrator. I've known Craig Rose since 1995. I wrote an email to you, Mayor, regarding my relationship with him. He is my former partner of 22 years. And in that time, we had 2 children. I watched him have 2 pretty serious concussions, and most recently had a growth removed on his head. So the altercation that happened, he got hit on the side of the head and the eye. He ended up in the emergency room having a CT scan. He called me afterwards and said, I got another CT scan. And so my history with him is knowing that this has affected our family and our children. And so I know that nothing has been done to rectify the situation. There were bills incurred from the hospital visits, and he has an opportunity to go to the Dr. Amen Clinic, which will help his head issues. And so what I'm asking today is for something to be done, because I'm standing by watching him have to not actually open his gallery because he's been having head issues once again. So it's kind of unfortunate that Chip happened to hit somebody because of all the things that have gone on with his head. So I just want action. I don't know if the city of Carmel or personally you, Chip, can actually pay for the medical bills or for the Dr. Amen Clinic, where I know would help him tremendously. That's all I wanted to say. I just want something to be done, and I hope, Chip, from the experience, I don't know, like anger management, I have no idea, but I've always known your response and reactions, you're responsible for them. No matter if somebody is in your face, you're responsible for your own responses and reactions. And I would love it if you just took responsibility in some form. Somebody, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Appreciate your testimony. Is there anybody else wishing to speak today?
Hi, my name is Daisy Rose. I am the wife of Craig Rose. I wanted to speak to you all today about two things. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've had here. I have a gallery and it was in my name. It was called the Daisy Rose Studio Gallery. I was received very kindly by many artists such as Ashley Bennett, Joaquin Turner, Robin Winfried, a lot of incredible people that I've met here, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity that I have had. I since have renamed my store to be called Dos Rosas, and you are all invited. It will be on Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m., our new rebrand and opening. Secondly, I would like to talk about what has occurred between Chip and my husband. I worked at a counseling agency as one of my first jobs out of high school, and people who got charges such as assault had to come in for anywhere from 12 to 24. Repeat offenders have to come in for many more weeks and take anger management courses. And something like that should be done. This person, Chip, should be held accountable. As Jeanette said, we are all responsible for the way we react. Someone has come into our store and said, well, wasn't Chip provoked? And that's really, really interesting way of thinking, because a lot of the people I have met had to go to those classes anyway, and it went on their record. They lost their jobs. They were unable to get jobs because of their record and unable to rent apartments. Whereas this person is sitting right here continuing in his administrator position. And I also want to read from the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea website. Specifically, the administrator oversees the Department of Community Planning and Building, Library, Community Activities, and Public Safety. You were on the job. And no matter what anyone does or says to you when someone is on a job, you are all representatives at this moment. You especially can't hit someone at that moment. What you do in your house, hopefully you're not doing it there either, I don't know. But hopefully you're doing it nowhere. Yeah, and the finances, it has shocked him to his core. He has had concussions before. We are going through difficult times with just the amount of stress this has caused on both of us. I left my hometown of Denver for a month because it was just incredibly frightening. So yeah, please do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Daisy. Appreciate your testimony.
Hello, I'm Craig Rose. Could be the most dangerous man in this room when you have two women that I've loved that speak on my behalf. I'm not dangerous, though. If you want danger, go to the Freemason meeting at 7:30. That's dangerous. I'm here to announce my run for mayor, roseforrenaissance.com. I'm also excited because it's just like Clint Eastwood said, a clean sweep. Bobby, your seat's up in November, and Karen, your seat's up. Chip, we know what's going to happen to you. You'll be replaced for covering up with the DA, and so it's going to be a clean sweep. So next December, if we can imagine, in 2024, there'll be a new president. That is, if we have those elections. If we go to war, who knows? This town will look different. Dolores Street, there's 6 galleries leaving at the end of this month. It's interesting, they're right next door to the pit. Why is that happening? The Carmel Art Association is literally sinking next to the pit. This town's sinking if we don't change. 6 galleries not going out of business, just ending because people aren't buying art in this town. The dollar has doubled, yet art prices are down, and it's the lowest art sales ever in this town. More art, like what we heard last week from Alex about an Inside Out gallery. More art in the secret passageways. Dolores Street's going to change because we're stalling on waiting for you guys to stop giving Patrice such a hard time. This could change overnight if we just allowed that building to go down, but we know, Alessandra, how much you're in love with that wall, that concrete wall that just has you so excited that you can't even look at me. So Rose for Renaissance, I don't need to be the mayor. I do speak a little bit better. I don't stutter, I don't mumble, but I'm looking for 3 good men and women, because that's what we're looking for here. So I'll talk right to the camera. I can create a movement about anything. I've done it my whole life. I've written 16 books. I've helped publish 26 books. I've been on stages all across the world. I don't need to sit on this stage, but we need people, humans with a soul, that sit on this side. So I'm looking, over the next weeks, I want to gather a group of people, because you guys, time's up. It's time's up, and there's new art in this town. One of the artists that came with me, his name's Hart Hatter. He's at the Art Basel. From Carmel to Art Basel, and the Hart Hatter piece, which was in the back of that was offered up to Carmel, is the backdrop to Art Basel's fashion show. There are artists here from Apple. There's a man here named Dan Harden from Whipsaw that is a painter. I've met the most tremendous artists that are rising here. My goal is to change this leadership in this city. Rose for Renaissance, 831-999-0114 is my cell phone. We can change this with a new city council, a new administrator, and a new mayor. Next December will be amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Next speaker. Does anybody else in the room have wishing to speak? Otherwise, I'll go out to the Zoom world. We have a few hands up. All right, we're going to go to Joe Todd. You have your hand up. Well,
Sorry, hold on a second.
looks like we have a
Jay
speaker.
Todd, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, well, we have a speaker that's come to the podium, so why don't we have the esteemed
Okay.
Ken White speak? Hold on.
Thank you, Ken White. One of the things I learned starting in the 60s, how this situation works, is the people in Carmel, and I think most council people would agree back to the 1960s, have a tradition of being well-spoken, put their points across, whether it's on planting, a tree, whatever it is. And I was, being in office those years, I was amazed at the people of Carmel, how lucid they were and thoughtful in their discussion. And I have to say, even if you didn't agree with them, we were all very conscious of each other, being how important each person and the role they play in this community. I'm sorry about tonight. It hurts. I spent a long time working for this city. I'm sorry. It disgusts me that we're in a situation we can't be civil. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. All right, we have another speaker in the House.
Doug Schmitz, Carmel-by-the-Sea. Mr. Mayor, my comments may run slightly longer than the allocated time, and I would ask for your indulgence. Mayor Potter, members of the council, Administrator Rierig, City Attorney and City Clerk, Mr. Craig Rose, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate that Mr. Rose has again addressed the council, for it is a reminder to all of us that the First Amendment assures his standard of speech, as well as that of all other citizens. But with constitutional rights comes civic responsibility. That responsibility takes many forms, especially in Carmel-by-the-Sea. One responsibility is for civility. Carmelites practice that old 15th century English word civilite, which passed down from the ages has been transferred into civility, the respect one shows for his fellow citizens. Another responsibility is to become educated about your community, to learn the ethos of the town, to know its history, its culture, its people, and its hopes. The late 18th century abolitionist, Wendell Phillips, said responsibility educates. In Carmel, we discuss issues and ideas, not public individuals, except at election time. We might disagree, but we don't disparage and we don't denigrate. Part of our history is this old building. For 110 years, it has been our anchor. For 37 of those years, it was where the Episcopal congregation met and where the community had other activities. For the past 73 years ago this month, it has been our municipal citadel. Whether as an ecclesiastical center or a governmental complex, this sanctuary has borne witness to the joys of marriages and to the solemnity of funerals. These walls have heard 4 different pastors ask for world peace and ask for the safe return of Carmel's soldiers, sailors, and airmen during the 2 great world crises. These walls have heard the great civic issues of Carmel debated: annexations, the Hatton Canyon Freeway, the size and shapes of houses, whether the Harrison should be expanded, whether the city should purchase the old Piccadilly Nursery on Dolores Street. What these walls have rarely heard is invective towards our public officials, elected or appointed. That has occurred, but those instances have been rare, not regular. In April 1934, Perry Newberry wrote an editorial in the Pinecone. At the time, 3 council members were retiring from the public service. Newberry said, "We owe them thanks." Mayor, council, members of the public, we owe you thanks. I have been one acquainted with the night.
Doug, I hate to do this, but you are
my
running out
last
of time.
sentence. I've been one acquainted with the night, wrote that San Francisco native Robert Frost. I have been one acquainted with the night, and I have outwalked the furthest city light. Mr. Rose, please, please do not bring Fastonian darkness into this house of civility.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in here tonight? Okay, now we'll go out to the Zoom world. So Joe Todd or Jay Todd, you have the floor.
It's a most unusual time of the year. It's that time again, and you just heard from ex-Mayor Ken White. He's asked me to provide music, and I want to invite everyone to the post office, December 22nd from 10 to noon, where we will have our annual, now it's become an annual because I think this is about the 5th year, where we gather together to sing holiday songs at the post office, as I said, from 10 to noon. And if you don't want to sing or you feel you can't sing, please come and be an audience or bring your instruments. Some people have brought their instruments. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all from 10 to noon, December 22nd. Yes, and the post office will be open, and we'll have a grand time with holiday songs. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Okay, why don't we move on then? Nicholas J. You have the floor.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Just want to check you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi there. Hey, I'm calling in on behalf of a dear friend of mine, Teresa Bacola. I'm sure you're familiar with Teresa. She's an extremely well-known local artist who was brutally arrested on the beach in Carmel back of July of 2020. Teresa is one of the most honest, sincere, and courageous people that I know. And I was just so appalled at the way she was treated, dragged off the beach, arrested, taken to a holding facility in Salinas, humiliated, searched, released in the middle of the night like a common criminal. I believe she was released by sheriffs at like 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning in Salinas. For those of you who don't know Teresa, she's a well-renowned glass artist. She's commissioned by people all over the country. She weighs about 95 pounds, and she's been treated like a criminal, just released onto the streets of Salinas in the middle of the night. You know, she did this. For those of you who are not familiar with her story, she had the audacity to walk onto, God's given beach. I believe the city of Carmel, or the police department, had declared the area a disaster area and strung up yellow tape. There was no disaster on the beach. I mean, the beach was where people should have gone during COVID. They should have, for sunlight and vitamin D and earthing and grounding and salt water and fresh air, exactly what people needed. I believe people were crowded into downtown Carmel at that time and were, banned access from the beach. Teresa went for a walk on the beach, and she was snatched off the beach and arrested, and she's now trying to seek justice. And I hope that those of you listening will look into this case. You can find Teresa on YouTube. You can look her up. Her name's Teresa Bacola, and you'll see exactly how she was treated. And I hope that some of you here have can be humble and look at what happened and look back now in hindsight and have the courage to publicly apologize for how Teresa was treated. It's a real blight on the city of Carmel to have treated somebody like that. Really so disgusting. Just for the record here, you had absolutely no legal right to close the beach in Carmel. I'm sure you're familiar with the California Coastal Act, which guarantees everybody's right to the water, to navigable waters in California. This has been like that for many years, and some of the stipulations that I saw, arrest anybody for sunbathing, arrest people for walking on the beach, going for a walk on the beach. It was just pure madness, and hopefully, after 3 or 4 years now, you can look back and show some compassion for what happened and sincerely apologize to Teresa.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your testimony. Your 3 minutes is up. Thank you. Okay, now we've got Cindy Lloyd. Cindy Lloyd will be followed by Nancy Toomey. No, let's see. Cindy Lloyd will be followed by Catherine. Cindy?
Mayor Potter,
Yes.
members of the council, city staff, my name is Cindy Lloyd. I have a very short message this afternoon, and that is welcome Paul Tomasi back to Carmel-by-the-Sea as Chief of Police. We missed you, Paul. We're glad you're back. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, Catherine and Nancy. Nancy will be followed by C. Roy. Catherine.
Good evening, Chair, City Council Chair, and City Manager Chip Rarick. This is about the closed session item for the lawsuit being filed by Teresa Bacola. I wouldn't welcome Tomasi back to the Chip Police Force because he clearly does not understand how to uphold the Constitution. And Mr. Rarick clearly is a problem for the city given he can't properly direct the police force to uphold their oaths. It's pretty incredible to read through some of these things that the City Council passed, including item 2.4 in the order, quote unquote, all persons using the beach must comply with all orders issued by Governor Newsom, the state public health officer, and the county public health officer. And unfortunately, it indicates that the City Council doesn't understand the proper order of authority because the people don't follow orders that the governor gives them, because the governor is not empowered to give people orders. The people create the government. And there's no law. The source of law in our country is the Constitution, the legislature, and the judiciary. The executive branch does not make law. There is no anything that empowers Governor Newsom to make any sort of law the people have to comply with. And in doing that, in writing a statement like this, you all have made yourself culpable and personally liable.
Yes.
For violations and deprivations of rights. So there's no celebration to have Tomasi back because he didn't understand this. And Chip Rarick is obviously a huge problem in the city of Carmel.
Amen.
He doesn't know how to treat it. Obviously, the city is a great place. I mean, you have artists, you have all this beautiful lore. You have the last two people that got up and spoke about different things, aspects of the city. But this situation is an embarrassment for the city. And the two people that were elected and one appointed that perpetrated this do not need to continue in city government. They don't understand how to implement the actual law. People in Carmel have a reasonable expectation that its government infrastructure will follow established law. It's established law. Orders are not law, and definitely not orders from the state public health officer or the county.
Catherine, I appreciate your testimony, but your time is up. Thank you. Okay, Nancy Toomey, then C. Roy, and then finally Chris Kev. Nancy?
Yes. Good evening, and thanks for everything that you do for us. And along those lines, I wanted to extend my thanks to the teams that put together the December 1st holiday celebrations, Ben Beasley, the Community Activities Department, the local performers, singers, musicians, etc., and those that the infrastructure folks on staff, whether it's police, CERT, and or VIP teams that help pull together a great celebration for this wonderful community that we live. So thank you all very much for that. It's very appreciated by many and throughout the village and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. C. Roy, followed by Chris Kev.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much, esteemed council members and mayor. Here to chat about government process and procedure and order. This might be a little duplicative over the prior comments made about the treatment of the closed beach, so bear with me. It is very well worth it to repeat some of these issues so that they are fully understood. First of all, we need to look at government, that the government has to prove the authority. This is like the order of sequence of the rule of law, shall we say, or Rex Lex, and Rex Lex is Latin for the king is the law, and that's the old rule. The new rule is Lex Rex, that the law, or Lex, is the king Rex. So the government, the council members, the county health officer, all have to show this authority that the people have granted them. So when Chip Rerig, the city manager, closed Carmel Beach unilaterally, he bears the burden of proof to show that he had that authority. Entering a closed disaster area, again, clearly this was overstepping, really didn't even have the evidence. Now we have to weigh the government's interest in bearing with the safety of the community, but even that was compromised, as is apparent now years later. So as one of the previous speakers mentioned, we really need to look at how these errors and overstepping of authority happened. It was quite tyrannical, frankly, and we need to look at who were the false speakers, the false news, because in hindsight, we know that people really didn't suffer as much from the COVID as they did from the vaccines that continue to plague my personal friends and community. So the Facebook page on the Police Officers Association said that they would be arrested for surfing. Again, as one speaker mentioned, they're out in the vitamin D and the sunshine. There's more than 6 feet of distance. They're out in the middle of the ocean. So looking at the causation and damages that these people may have caused, there is nothing there. Frankly, with all due respect, the city council and all government elected officials as well as appointed officials really are civil servants, and they are there serving at the behest of the citizens of this great country. A snapshot from your agenda in 2020 indicated that sovereign people would be punished for sunbathing, lounging, picnic, and bringing coolers, umbrellas, or chairs onto Carmel Beach. Clearly, again, there was a lot of hype, ladies and gentlemen, and the facts in hindsight show that it was terribly abused. Part of this just reads on the fact that don't let a good crisis go to waste. And if there isn't a good crisis, create one. That's certainly what appeared to happen
sir.
here.
Your time is up. Sir, thank you. Okay, we're going on now. What appears to be the last speaker, Chris Cav.
Yes, hi. My name is Chris, and I come as a peacemaker. I like to hear everybody's opinions. I think this is good. We share opinions, and that's what it's all about. But as you know, the government in the United States is run by we the people. It's not run by the government. We tell the government what to do. The government are public servants. So do not forget that being a government is highly appreciated, but you're public servants, and don't do things that people don't like or don't want. You know, we don't want the Soviet Union here. We want America where people have freedom. So anyone should be able to go to the beach anytime they want. There's no making rules. Oh, you can't go to the beach. Oh, you can't do this. You can't do that. No, you can recommend. Back in the old days, like I was just telling somebody else the other day that, when I was a kid, I was learning how to drive, and they were making laws about wearing seatbelts. And we saw the data, and I would always wear a seatbelt because I saw the data, and I don't want to cause any trouble. But it's not. You don't have to tell people what to do. You tell them the data, and then they can make their own decision. That's people using their brain. We don't want people to be robots. We want people to be able to be humans. So, and we also, talk about being humans. We need to decide where we want to spend eternity, because our life on Earth is only for a certain amount of years, but we want to spend eternity in the right place. And for people that treat people, mistreat people like they did Teresa Bukola, that will end up potentially putting people to spend eternity in the wrong place. And I would hate anybody to have to spend eternity in the wrong place, because it's so much better, eternity is a long time, and it's so much better to spend eternity in a place where you're loved by Jesus than somewhere where you're being tortured 24/7 for eternity by demons. So I don't wish anyone to go there. And when we celebrate Christmas, we always go to Isaiah 9:6, and it says, "Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulders," right? So don't forget, we appreciate the government. The government is responsible to, God is ultimately in charge. The government can do anything they want, but they will be judged by God, and we don't want anyone to be judged the wrong way. So I pray for our government, and I pray for all us to stay in a righteous direction. And I just want to encourage everybody in the government, do the right thing. Don't do what, communists tell you to do, like Gavin Newsom or any of those other people that, we're going to get rid of those people. We're going to get rid of all kinds of government that is not behaving according to the American Constitution. We don't go Marxist, we go American Constitution. So I just want to say that, and we all have to report back to the Lord, because the Lord is ultimately the one that will judge. Jesus is the one that has been given the job to judge every single human being and where they'll spend eternity. So I don't want to see any of you guys spend eternity in the wrong place.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Your time is up. Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight in Zoom world or in this room? I don't see anybody. I'm going to close the public comment period, bring it back to council. We got city administrator's announcements. Chip?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I just really kind of have thanks as well. Thank you to all the speakers tonight. I think it was great hearing from everyone. And so thank you for coming and exercising your First Amendment rights to free speech. I wanted to thank everyone who helped out and attended both our menorah lighting and our holiday tree lighting last Friday. It was more people than I think we've ever had. Ashley and I estimate in excess of 2,000 people attended. So it was really a well-attended event, very well orchestrated. Mayor and council did a great job lighting the tree. And so thanks to everyone. Obviously our staff did a great job. Welcome back, Paul Tomasi. For those of you who don't know him, I think you're going to find him just a wonderful person, very approachable, very kind. He's a great communicator, so welcome back. Thank you for coming back, Chief. I'm very, very grateful to have you back. And then last thanks is to Chief Watkins. This will be his last public meeting in this forum. Thank you, Chief, for stepping into the breach almost a year ago to take on the leadership of the police department, and I'm really grateful that you were there for all of us. So thank you so much, and Godspeed, and best of luck in your future endeavors, sir. Thanks all, Mr. Mayor.
Council member, excuse me, City Attorney. Brian?
Yes, we had a closed session yesterday afternoon, and there's no reportable action.
Thank you. Council members.
Yeah, I'll go. Well,
Bobby Richards?
I'd like to say welcome back, Paul, but Chief, really thank you so much. You did a fine job, and I really appreciate it for stepping in a pinch, and you hit it out of the park, so thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you around.
Anybody else? Oh, Sandra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to thank the city and the American Legion Post 512 for a lovely Veterans Day ceremony. And after the event, one of the veterans pointed out to me that our flags in Devendorf Park were looking a little bit faded. And I'm pleased to announce and thank Chip and our Public Works staff. We now have brand new city, state, and U.S. flags at Devendorf Park.
Well done. Okay, anybody else? Karen.
Yes, I'd just like to thank our interim police chief, Watkins, and wish him well in his retirement. We are going to miss you.
Well said. Anybody else? Okay, in the spirit of non-redundancy, I'll just say I agree with everything that's been said, really. Very, very accurate. All that noted. Why don't we move on then to the items that's first before us. One's a resolution 2023-107 approving policy C-2023-01, establishing guidelines for Carmel Beach cleanup operations.
Mayor?
Before we get into staff, go ahead.
I just have a question. Before we get a staff report, would it be possible to postpone this item to a later date when we know more of the cans and can'ts and shouldn'ts before we put together this proclamation?
We'll certainly have a discussion about that. I'd be supportive of actually going ahead and considering the continuance of this item for the fact that I don't think we've got quite enough consensus in the community as to why we're doing this. I also would like to get a field trip together. We could go out to the beach and actually take a stroll around and get the kind of better understanding of what the issues are. I think this staff report's good, but I think it's kind of confrontational. I don't really like going that route, so.
I would certainly support that, Mr. Mayor, and I think we need more time to understand all the issues that are involved here, to certainly see it firsthand. That makes all the difference for us as council members, and just to slow the process down a little bit. I think we would all benefit from that, so I would certainly support delaying it a bit and spending more time on it in the future.
I would. So where we are right now, excuse me, where we are right now is we have no beach cleanup policy. And I think that, the Forest and Beach Commission and staff have put a substantial amount of time into the development of this policy. So I would like to hear, the staff report. I would like to hear from the community members that are here about what they think and proceed at that point.
I concur. I think the staff has spent an inordinate amount of time, and the Forest and Beach Commission as well, and I would prefer to actually approve a policy tonight and then do the field trip or whatever you want to do and if there's any changes or amendments that need to be made, do it that way. But I don't like continuing things because it just makes more staff work. So
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I think that if we approve this, knowing that we're going to thinking that we are going to make changes.
We may not.
We may not, but thinking that we may, then it's a kind of a waste. I feel it's a waste of the public's time, our time, staff's time. Let's get something that, I feel that this isn't going to pass tonight. And so let's get something before us that's going to pass.
Well, with respect, I think that all the time that you talk about, the Forest and Beach Commission time, the staff time, that's all sunk costs. That's all been done. And the cost at this point is half an hour of our time or however long this
Well, it's the residents' time too.
So we will, the residents are here. We can have the staff presentation. We can hear from the residents. We can spend half an hour or 45 minutes doing it, and we will know more in half an hour or 45 minutes, based on everything that we hear tonight than we do now. You know, this is an opportunity for us to move forward a little bit. And we can make the same, you know, we can have the same continuation vote in 45 minutes that we're doing now. You know, it's a relatively short agenda. We have time to do it tonight, and I think we should do it.
I think it's just another 45 minutes that we're going to spend, and we're going to spend it next month. So it's obviously up to 5 of us.
So if you want to make a motion for a continuance, we could have any further discussion around that if you get a second.
Can I make that motion now without public hearing?
Yeah, well, go ahead and make the motion, and I'll open it up for public hearing.
I make a motion that we move this or continue this item to an unspecified date after we get some more information from the different agencies that we have to listen to and adhere to.
I would second that.
We have a second. Okay, now under discussion, this will be strictly about the continuance. So if there's anybody who wants to come forward and talk about the continuance, whether they think it's a good idea or not, I think they can feel the majority of the council does. But if you do have a desire to come forward and say something about the fact that you think a continuance would be a productive use of time, probably be a good idea. Is there anybody wishing to do so?
It seems to me, Shirley Moon with Carmel Cares as a volunteer, when a best practices document is proposed to become part of the municipal code, it is reasonable to expect it to be accurate and reflect the best thinking from all sides. This policy as written does not meet those basic goals. So I would be in support of reviewing this more carefully and continuing it so that we can have really in-depth discussions about what it needs to be so that it therefore can be passed and everybody can support it. There are very few details left that have to be ironed out. It can happen quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Is there anybody else wishing to speak?
Richard Kreitman, I would be for the continuance as this is a major policy, and how we are stewards of our beach, how we care for our beach for our community and the tens of thousands of people who come and use it every year requires more discussion than passing this and seeing if we change it later. So please continue it.
Thank you, Richard.
Dale Byrne, Carmel Cares. I've been involved in all parts of this process that's taken place, and the only Forest and Beach Commission where this was discussed, I was the only person in attendance. It was noticed on Monday for a Thursday meeting. Nobody obviously knew much about this. I brought that up. I asked for a continuance at that meeting and was turned down. Since then, we have done everything we can do to do research, and we've done a lot of extensive research, and we have somebody on the board who has many years of experience with the Marine Sanctuary. And I wasn't heard. We weren't heard. And the Forest and Beach Commission was told at the Forest and Beach Commission meeting where this was brought up that it doesn't matter what they say. We don't care if you think driftwood is an issue. We're going to put this to the council the way we want to see it, and we don't care what you say. They then, the commission did not approve this with the current policy. They said, let's come back and discuss it and talk about driftwood. Instead of bringing it back and having a discussion about it, what they did was came back and said, it wasn't agendized. They came back and Mary made a presentation to them without anybody knowing it was going to happen, and I was there, sort of as a public comment. After I had a chance to make a public comment, and I didn't know it was going to be talked about, they talked about it, said this is what the policy is, and we're taking it to the council. I had no chance to even make a comment about it. That is not good policy. That is not good process, and we need to have good process. We have some really smart people on the commission that wanted to talk about this, and we wanted to participate. We wanted to have a beach walk, which is actually scheduled by Chip for the 11th, which is next Monday, and then this comes on the agenda. So I really think it's, we love having a policy, but we want a good one. So let's just put this off. There's no hurry. The beach is disappearing in about another 30 days at the most. And we can talk about this for 3-4 months, and the beach will come back and we'll do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dale. Is there anybody else wishing to speak in the room here?
Brian Sowers, former Forest and Beach Commissioner and a Carmel resident. I just wanted to again reinforce Mr. Burns' statements to you. Since I was a part of those meetings as a Forest and Beach Commissioner, I believe everything he has stated to you is in fact true, and I believe that it would be in accordance with the wishes of the Forest and Beach Commission that we do continue this and give it more time and energy with regards to specifics around the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else? Anybody in the Zoom world wishing to speak to this item?
There's no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council, close the public comment period.
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
I have a question for the council. You know, given what we heard and sort of the sort of miscommunication that seems to have happened at the Forest and Beach Commission, do we really want to continue this and have it reheard here, or do we want to just send it down to back down to the Forest and Beach Commission to have it sort of redone? I mean, what I heard was that you know, some members of the public aren't really happy with what happened at the Forest and Beach Commission, and a remedy to that is to sort of send it back down to the Forest and Beach Commission and have them try to do a better job.
I think I'd be comfortable doing that if we gave a direction, but I don't know if I'm comfortable enough with the direction now.
I have a suggestion, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, please.
You know, what if this motion passes? What I was thinking about doing, just thinking about it right now, is inviting the regulating agencies to have a field trip with you, and obviously our colleagues from staff. I mean, Mary Bilsey's got 35 years of experience in environmental policy. So, you know, having the Coastal Commission staff and having State Lands Commission or having the Sanctuary, Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, whoever they are, to meet us on the beach with the public. It'll be a public meeting, obviously, so we could ask about, high tide line, what about this piece of driftwood, what about this piece of kelp, and get real specific answers. And if there's the desire to have Forest and Beach involved, we'll have a joint meeting. We'll just have them come as well, so we can all hear the same information from the same group of regulators. If it passes, that'd be my suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
I have a comment on that. I would not be comfortable having the meeting on the beach. I would be comfortable having a field trip to the beach and then a discussion in chambers. We cannot discuss this on the beach with any real concentration.
I apologize. That's my word usage, ma'am. It would be an informal. It wouldn't be a formal meeting on the beach per se, but we would have the opportunity to ask professionals that regulate all the public beaches on 1,200 miles of coastline, Mr. Mayor, how they deal with these kinds of issues. So it'd be a Q&A with the regulators, and we wouldn't make any decisions out there, that's for sure.
If we could get some structure to the meeting before we go out there and just start asking questions arbitrarily, include Dale's group and get the group together.
Yeah. Well, we could start here. I'm sorry, ma'am, real quickly. We could start here and then talk about what we're going to look at, and then go down to the beach and walk it. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just want to say I support Councilmember Barron's idea, and Chip, and I support what you brought up. I think taking a field trip with these agencies and seeing firsthand, are we talking about little twigs? Are we talking about large branches? Are we talking about large branches that are accumulated and built up to look like a fort? There's a lot of things that we need to look at specifically so we are all on the same page. I think the more time we can spend on it, the better. So Forest and Beach can, with our direction, go back, hash this out, and then we can make a decision after that.
Yeah, and I would just like a further comment. I sat on the Forest and Beach Commission for 16 years, and there was a lot of discussion about our shoreline and so on during that time. We have a shoreline management plan, but our beach is different from other beaches, and I would like that to be part of the discussion as well. We don't have a beach that drifts by and things go away. We have a beach that goes in and out and in and out, and we need education about that, and that should be part of the discussion, and our decision should be based on the habitat and the needs of the habitat, not necessarily the needs of people who want a white, completely clean, scraped down beach. It has to be based on what these agencies say are important for maintaining our habitat, the habitat for the birds, et cetera. So
for all these reasons, continuing this item would be the prudent thing to do.
We have a motion, we have a second, we haven't had any other discussion.
Well, Mike, I still have a question, is it going to be under the purview of the council, or are we gonna have a meeting and, you know, have the meeting that's described and then send it down to Forest and Beach, you know, give our input and then send it down to Forest and Beach to develop a plan, and then, hear the plan back? Is like, so it's gonna be like council, Forest and Beach council, or is it gonna be council, or what's the?
It's up to you. I think if you do the joint meeting with the Forest and Beach Commission, you can decide whether you'd like to remand it to them or deal with it yourself. You don't have to decide today.
I agree. I'm comfortable with that. I think that my intent is to get a forum going where we can actually get some direction collaboratively, so we don't have commissions off, you know, going in one direction, we want to go to another. I think this will give us an opportunity to actually sit down, go through the issues together. Motion, we have a second. I'm going to call the question.
I made the motion.
I called it. A second. No, but Calasandra.
I second it.
Yeah.
Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Dramow?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. You want to receive then a presentation regarding the 2023 Storm Drain Master Plan update? Bob?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. Let's get this up and running. Thank you, Nova. Okay, I'm pleased to present the 2023 update of the Storm Drain Master Plan that was initially done in 2020. A little bit of history of the Storm Drain Master Plan and this new update. Back in September 2019, Council awarded professional services agreement to a firm called Schaff and Wheeler Consulting Engineers for about $175,000, and they prepared the city's first ever storm drain master plan. The plan was completed in late 2020. The plan was presented to the Climate Committee in December 2020 and to the City Council in February 2021. The storm drain master plan determined that our city was basically designed for a 10-year storm event versus a more costly 20-year event. Now, if the city was up on the top of a hill and runoff went away from the hill, wouldn't be such a problem. But we're down by the coastal community, the water comes through our town, and 20-year would probably be a wiser standard for our town. The Climate Committee and subsequently Council requested that any future drainage improvements be designed to accommodate the 20-year storms, basically due to climate change. And with additional funding in the capital improvement program in fiscal year 23, back in last October, Council awarded a new agreement to Schaff and Wheeler for $50,000 to update the storm drain master plan to reflect the 20-year drainage storm events. And in June 2023, the storm drain master plan update was completed, and it's posted and available for full review on our website. Okay, the next three slides have to do with the 2020 storm drain master plan, the original master plan. So before the plan was done, we didn't have any prior master plan, and the unknown impacts was, well, what improvements or repairs needed to be done? How could we prioritize? It was reactive. We fixed things when we heard about it, but we didn't necessarily do it in priority order. We didn't have we couldn't maximize the cost benefit of repairs because it was just reactive. The capacity of our system was unknown. We didn't know, could our system handle a 50-year storm event, a 10-year, 20-year? We didn't know yet. We didn't know the physical condition of our system. Were there potential sinkholes and flooding due to blockages? This was a separate project, but the stability of the stream in the Mission Trail Nature Preserve was kind of precarious, and potentially significant erosion in this environmentally sensitive habitat. So that was a separate drainage plan that was completed around the same time. The cost of the repairs for the storm drain system is unknown. It's kind of hard to budget for capital projects when we don't know what the projects are. And there was, of course, some impacts due to increasingly stronger storms. The 2020 Storm Drain Master Plan resulted in the following. First of all, it's a plan that guides the planning, design, construction, operations, and maintenance of storm drain infrastructure. And the main thing it did, and it was worth every penny, it eliminated the fear of the unknown. Before that plan, we didn't know what we had. Now we know what we have. The Storm Drain Master Plan included a condition assessment, so they videoed every single pipe in our system. They did a full hydrology and a hydraulic modeling of our whole system, identified system capacity constraints, also referred to as bottlenecks. They documented nuisance areas and recommended drainage improvement projects in priority order. It turns out that Carmel storm drain system was designed piecemeal over time, which is pretty common. It wasn't all, we don't have a master plan community. It was designed over time. And without any repairs, a 10-year storm would cause minor flooding in a few areas, like it did several years ago. We had about a 10-year storm. Minor flooding in a few areas. But a 10-year storm event without any of these repairs would cause significant or some moderate to significant flooding and damage, especially in the northeast quadrant of the town and downtown. And also it would flood at the Mission Trail Nature Preserve, which is not built, but it would also back up on Rio Road, and the Carmel River would be raging as we've seen in past storms. This graphic shows the projects that were identified back in 2020 to accommodate the 10-year storm event. So at the time, we looked at, say, a $10 million investment for 19 different projects would allow a 10-year storm, which is 3 inches in 24 hours, to pass without flooding. That would capture most of it. Okay, now we're moving on to the new Storm Drain Master Plan update. So the hydraulic models were updated for a 20-year storm event rather than the 10 years as initially performed in the 2020 plan. Now the condition assessment wasn't updated. There's no need to. Broken pipes are still broken. So we didn't have to do that again. The nuisance areas that were identified in the original plan were updated. We had a few more years of storms, so we were able to fine tune that. More capacity improvements were identified, hence there's going to be more cost. That's because there's more intense storms. So that's as expected. With higher intensity storms, more capacity projects are necessary. And the update updated the cost estimates, it updated the project priorities. We also had them do 3 special studies to seek potential cost savings because of the magnitude of our projects. Okay, I'm gonna spend a little time on this. This is the existing drainage system. To the left is north, Monterey Bay, the ocean's down to the bottom of the screen. Now our drainage basin is shown in blue. It extends beyond the city limits because drainage doesn't care where the city limits are. It goes up on the east side up to Highway 1. I want to break this slide down into 4 quadrants, which I think is important for council to understand. I'm going to start on the left side, which is the north edge. You see the 4th Avenue storm drain, which looks like a leg. The 4th Avenue system drains basically to the west to an outfall, which is structurally deficient. It's identified in our shoreline infrastructure repair. Some of that drainage area in that northern area flows into Pescadero Canyon. The next section is the easterly third of the city, and you see a number of squiggly lines, but if you cut the city in half and you look at the upper half, that's the eastern side of the city. The flow is generally from north to south. It flows through a trunk line, as you can see, along Junipero and Mission, and eventually into Mission Trail Nature Preserve and outlets into the Carmel River. We have problems there. We have some of the biggest capacity bottlenecks are in that area. Next, in the central area of town along Ocean Avenue, the flow generally from west to the ocean includes the downtown area. We have some spot repairs to make, some problems, not as extreme as the easterly section. And the best area really is the southwest quadrant, which is all the little culverts that we see, the little dots. Those are culverts at the intersections. And the flows west into all the outlets and out into onto the beach, into the ocean. Okay, here's our locations of the physical deficiencies. You can see they're kind of clustered, Junipero and Ocean Avenue area, and on Torres and 5th. There's some along the shoreline, but a majority of them are in the easterly section of the city. Here's a couple of examples of condition problems. On the left, you see a pipe sag, so water just stays in the pipe. That's not good. In the middle, there's a joint displacement On the far right, there's a cracked pipe. So these are just some examples in our system. Next, we're looking at capacity limitations for 20 years. And I wanted to point out in the middle, upper middle of the slide, we see on Junipero, it's the orange line, and then the red line on, it says Mission Bypass. That's ground zero for our bottleneck. Because the eastern section of the city drains through this trunk line. Right now, there's a bottleneck which goes off of or onto Mission Avenue. The red line is showing a new pipe on Junipero, so the drainage goes straight. It doesn't cut across a couple of blocks to cut over and cause problems. So I think our suggestion is to focus, the biggest project is to focus on the Junipero and Mission Bypass section for capacity. We updated our nuisance drainage areas based on some prior year storms. Now, some of these are linked to the capacity projects, and others just reflect actual field conditions, streets, cross slopes and streets, lack of curbs, culverts, that type of thing. So this is also part of the equation. And as you can see in all these different slides, the reds are the high priority, the yellows are moderate priority, and the greens are the least priority. Now we're putting them all together. So this map puts all the issues together. It shows where the capacity issues are, the nuisance issues, and the physical repairs that are needed. And then of all those issues, those are now prioritized yet again. So the red areas are the highest priority, the orange is moderate, and the green is the lowest. I wanted to point out these are not every possible project that was identified. These are the main ones that we need to tackle, and it's going to be a number of years before we can get that far, but this is where we need to focus. Okay, moving on to a list of projects that's also in your packet. We have 6 high priority projects that were identified worth $3.7 million. That's based on a good bidding climate. Medium priority, we have 9 projects worth $7.7 million and 8 lower priority projects worth $3.3 million. So it's really no surprise that it's a greater investment to be able to capture a 20-year storm event, which is 3.66 inches in an hour to pass without flooding. And the $14.7 million would cover the 23 projects listed on the table. Okay, moving on to some special studies that was mentioned earlier. So we asked Schaff and Wheeler to look at 3 potential ways to save money in the long run. I'll start up on the upper part. It says parallel pipes viable in many cases, which will save us money. So for example, on Junipero between 5th and 7th, there's a 24-inch storm drain. And initially, we could go in and rip out the storm drain and put in a larger 36 or 42-inch pipe, whatever is determined to be necessary. That's expensive. It would be less expensive to leave the pipe that's in the ground now and build a parallel pipe, say another 24-inch. So it would be cheaper, easier, less disruptive, and saves money. And we're figuring we can be able to do that in quite a number of places that has new storm drain pipes. That's the good news. Over on the left-hand side in Devendorf Park, the consultant identified that a 1 acre-foot underground tank would reduce the downstream pipe sizes along that trunk line on Junipero and all the way down to Mission Trail Nature Preserve. That would be wonderful to downsize all that pipe. The catch is we're ripping up the park to put an underground tank. If the park were to have a renovation project, that's something to consider. If it's a timing issue, but if we were to renovate the park, this would really be the grassy area, but to renovate the park, also put in an underground tank, will save a lot of money in drainage. So we kind of, something to consider. It's not a clear-cut advantage. And then one of the biggest problems we have is on the south end of town where the Mission Trail Nature Preserve outlets onto right now we have 1 box culvert under Rio Road, under the ball fields that discharges out into Carmel River. So when we have heavy rains, the Carmel River backs up, water backs up now into our box culvert under Rio. And so far we haven't had too much problem flooding into Mission Trail. What this is showing for a 20-year event or greater, it's going to be very costly to install 2 additional box culverts under Rio Road all the way down into the river. Plus, there's a lot of environmental issues. There might be an advantage to consider a retention pond in the south end of Mission Trail Nature Preserve near Rio to let the water flow there and then trickle down into the river as the river retards. Of course, there's a lot of environmental issues for that option as well. So these are just options to consider. We're not there yet, but at least we have a game plan for what could be done to cut costs for the drainage, although it has other impacts. And then just a quick look on what we're doing in terms of drainage projects. The 3 drainage projects at the south end of Mission Trail Nature Preserve. As of last week, we got our last permit from the Department of Fish and Wildlife Service. So now we have Army Corps, Fish and Wildlife, and the Water Quality Control Board permits in hand. We're finishing up the bid documents. We'll be going out to bid in January for that. We may need more funding to award the construction contract, but we're getting close. So we also have the $180-something thousand from the state parks grant. We're in design at about 60%. We're heading into 90% now for 4 projects. First is Lincoln Street between 1st and 2nd and along 2nd Avenue to Monteverdi. This is capacity improvement. This also ties into the 2nd and Monteverdi system that is in the master plan. The master plan didn't list the priority projects on things that are already in design. So that list of the 23 projects does not necessarily include a couple of ones that are already underway. 11th Avenue between Carmelo and San Antonio Avenue was one of the high priority capacity improvement projects that was identified in the plan. We have Santa Fe Street storm drain 8th to the outfall of Mission Trail. That's a nuisance issue. And Acacia Way head wall at Flanders Way is also a nuisance issue. So right now this is being packaged as one construction contract. We're at 60%, so we're probably going out to bid in the spring. And then next, for the upcoming CIP, not only for next year, but for years after, I would suggest that we start thinking about the Mission bypass, that Junipero trunk line between 7th and 10th. That's the main capacity problem that we have now. Santa Rita, we have 2 repair projects. It's relatively small dollars, but they're precarious conditions, physical conditions. We don't want pipes breaking or anything. And then also to reconstruct the 4th Avenue outfall, which is also part of that shoreline infrastructure repair program. That needs to be addressed. That's been on our CIP for a number of years, and it's time to get that thing going. And I believe that ends my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions to Bob by council.
Yes, I have a question. This tentative or potential retention pond under Devendorf, is that something that then we could use that water? Like some homeowners have put tanks under their homes and they use it for landscaping, or is that just for retention and then it would be dispersed?
Yes, well, sure, it could be captured and pumped into an irrigation system. It would be non-potable. But right now we looked at it from a standpoint of capturing the runoff, letting it settle in place under the park, and then slowly trickle out down a smaller pipe down on Junipero and into the Mission Trail.
Okay, and...
We could, real quickly, ma'am, we could potentially flush the toilets at Devendorf with that reclaimed water.
Yeah.
So I know that Bob and Brandon and Mary and other people Jermel are looking at working with COD on some kind of a solution to use non-potable water to flush toilets. Obviously, you can't wash your hands or drink it, but you can flush toilets with it.
Okay, and then one other question. During the heavy storm season, do you go out and actually video some of these areas so that we have that for our reports, for our usage and so on? Do you have that?
Well, Councilmember Polito, you do. you video.
Yes,
our superintendent does videos on occasion.
Yeah.
But on occasion only.
I realize you're very busy during the storms, but I think it would be valuable so that everyone who doesn't go out and drive around and video the flooding areas to have that when we make our decisions, because it's pretty dramatic and it's good evidence as to why.
I would say that we do that, but it's the crews that aren't actually working in the field. It's someone, again, like me and Max, who are looking at head walls that are being overwhelmed. We video that. Even something as simple as ponding on the scenic road footpath is something that we try to document. So Bob has a laundry list of things to fix when it stops raining. So we do it, but also there's some great all of you do that as well, Council. I agree with Bob, but some great residents who document things and then send them to me as well. So let's keep it up. It's a great team effort.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a few questions. First is, when you talk about 3 or 4 inches, you're talking about 3 or 4 inches an hour, or 3 or 4 inches
in a 24-hour period.
In 24 hours.
Correct.
So what was our experience last year? Do you have any idea? Like in terms of like how many inches of rain we got on sort of the worst days?
I don't think it exceeded about that amount,
Okay.
Mr. Barron, but it was so many days in a row, and then it was combined with super saturated soil because it rained nonstop, and then the winds as well. So it was kind of a perfect storm, if you will.
Right. And also, if I may, it's the intensity, 3.66 inches or so in rain in 1 hour. It might rain 10 inches in a day and not have that kind of intensity within one particular hour.
Yeah,
it's
so
the heaviest of the storms that is of most
Yeah, so I'm just
concern
wondering
to
whether
us.
one metric is really enough to describe like what we're really after. Whether, I understand that 3.66 inches in 24 hours is sort of one metric by which we should measure the system, but after last year, I just wonder whether that's really enough. I mean, you talked about super saturated soil, and, maybe this only handles 2.5 inches an hour if the soil is super saturated, or we just got 3 inches of water that rained the previous day. And so I wonder whether this is enough.
Well, I think we basically doubled the storm time period, right? So we went from looking at a 10-year storm event to a 20-year storm event based on your, both you're at the climate committee as well as the council. So, really, and that expands it by, about an inch of water, 0.66, 66 of an inch of water within a 24-hour period. But again, it's as Bob's saying, it's not just the volume, it's the velocity, the rate it comes down, and a whole bunch of other factors that are.
Okay. So my second question is sort of related to the 4th Avenue outfall. And I know that shows up, as you mentioned, that shows up on the shoreline report, which I assume we're all going to see, at some point after you get, I think one of the next phases, and Mary, I don't see Mary in the audience, but you can correct me, like one of the next parts of the end of phase 1, you're going to get pricing on all the things that were identified in that report. And so it concerns me that we have this. That's actually a thing that could kill someone if it comes down. If someone's sitting under the beach, which people sit under that thing on the beach all the time. And that's a thing that's just going to come down on its own. And these are things that have to do with like water flooding. And that seems to be sort of in a different category of danger. And I worry that thing is being, just sort of, I know that you have it on the CIP, key projects for the CIP, but it worries me that that thing might get just sort of rolled up the slope a little bit, and it might continue to get, sort of pushed off. And so I'd like to just continue to highlight that one thing. And there may be issues with the other ones that are on the beach as well, but I know that one is very, very problematic.
And as a reminder, Mr. Barron, you did. Bob had recommended a budgeted amount, a CIP amount for additional studies and design work, and the council said we need to put at least some of that money into construction. So I think we had 160 grand out of the $500,000, if memory serves. And so we're looking at, just like the slide you see on the right, the highest priority repairs at the beach to ensure public safety.
Yeah, because I know that's probably a multi-million-dollar project to redo it. And then finally, something that's sort of near me, the 2nd Avenue in Monte Verde. I know we're in some sort of hot water, about that project as it is. But another thing I know about that project is a lot of that water, the water that comes into that project, some of it comes from outside of the city. And I don't know, and to be honest, that water dumps its water outside of the city. So the reason that we don't see a sort of drainage plan down Second Avenue is because there's not a drainage path down Second Avenue, which is on the left side of the city. All that water goes out. All that water, crosses the city line and goes down the slope to sort of Pescadero Canyon. And so one of the things I think when I look at, so I like this map that's up here, this drainage map, but one of the things that's sort of missing, when I look at it, is some indication of where the water is coming into and leaving the city. And I wonder if that thing, there's a lot of water that flows through that thing, when it rains. And it's hard to tell from this map, really, it, barely even registers on here. So it's hard to tell from this map, where we have water coming into the city that originates from because of someone else's topography, and where we, so sometimes we take care of someone else's problem, and that's, whatever you want to call that word. And sometimes we give someone else a problem. And I would like to understand, it'd be good if, you have some spare time, if at some point, we could understand where the points are that we might get ourselves in trouble again.
Yeah, let Bob and I work on to see if there's some more detail in the Schaff and Wheeler report, because you're right. I mean, we can say it's Caltrans water, right, from Highway 1, and then people on the point can say it's Carmel-by-the-Sea's water. But Bob, you hit the nail on the head. Water doesn't respect political boundaries. So, but I think there's some details about, because we've got flow analysis and where it's coming from. But we'll take a look at that and get that to the council.
I don't know how to do that. I'll just leave that up to you. But I think it would be a good addition to that. Information could be represented on this map.
I'd be really supportive of that, actually. That was something I wanted to talk about briefly, because we get accused of being responsible or contributing to flooding in the lagoon area because we're running off coming out of our area. So I don't think that can accuse us of that, and then we have to take care of their water coming off of the northern section of town.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, the mayor's right. I mean, so a lot of that water in Mission Trail Nature Preserve doesn't come from the city.
That's correct.
And so, if we had a handle on that, that would be useful information. Going back to the whole thing that's going on 2nd Street. I mean, that would be useful information to have when we go into whatever discussions we're going to have.
It's a very, I mean, I'm going to not be glib. It's an interesting topic but the Schaff and Wheeler report is literally a tome. So the hydrologists that really get into this. So Bob and I will talk about that during our update and get you an answer, Mr. Barron.
Any other questions? Bob, it says here that the city should close circuit TV the nearly 3,000 feet storm drain. And over the course of 2 years, are we going to be doing that? Where do we close circuit TV all our lines out?
We did CCTV all over the lines. We have that information. And I think they say they recommend a quarter or a fifth of the city to redo it every 5 years and kind of rotated. But before 2020, we didn't have any video inspection of the lines.
Okay, all right.
Does that answer the question?
Yep. Okay, is there anybody else with questions before I go to the public? Anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item today?
We have one hand raised on Zoom.
All right. We have a good person associated with that hand.
Yeah. Jay Todd, go ahead.
All right, Joe Todd. Your hand is up. Joe, talking about the storm drain system.
I'm sorry, I don't have my hand raised. It's down, in fact, so I'm sorry for that confusion.
No problem. Saves time, okay. So there's a receipt of report only, then no specific action required. I think we concur we receive the report. I think it's valuable. There's an awful lot of information there, but an awful lot of money associated with it. But the liability is pretty high, so I don't want it to just sit around on a shelf.
I'd like to make another comment, though. I do visit Mission Trail during storm sign, and last year there was significant ponding by Rio Road. I mean, significant for several hours, and then it drained away. But I have looked at some interactive flooding maps that the state and other people put out, and there could be some very severe flooding in the 11th Avenue area down there by the Narvaez property, and some other things that, you know, I think this is so important. And of course, the $14 million scares the heck out of me as far as how we're going to get all this done. Is there any opportunity to fund this through a bond or something like that? Are we going to have any information about that so that we can take care of more of these areas than less? You know, to space this out over 5 or 10 years creates a lot of danger, it seems.
Well, I'll refer to Mr. Rarig on the potential for bonding. This is not intended to fix in 1 year or $14 million at one shot. This is many, many, many years. So over the next, in the 5-year CIP, we have been plugging in, I think, $500,000 or $1 million per year. But perhaps because of the backlog, the deficit of repairs, we might want to consider potential a bond measure to get caught up a little bit.
Well, my concern is with the prediction that we may have another superstorm year or maybe a couple years in a row, we're going to have to deal with a lot of potential damage in the meantime.
Right. But I would suggest that what we're doing already is focusing on the high priority. We already have 2 or 3 under design now. Let's focus on those. A little bit of pressure comes off, but we have to fix them all eventually. Yes.
Yeah, because one thing I would point out is when you don't have access to Mission Trail, that precludes safety access for fire department, police department, et cetera, if that is flooded down there. So that is a very, very important area to make sure that we have proper drainage.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, we'll deem a report received and we can move on. Why don't we go ahead and get this next one out of the way, then we can take a brief bio break. Does that work? Okay, so then number 3 is consider a recommendation from the city's traffic safety committee to convert a total of 3 street parking spaces to no parking zones in front of 2 existing bus stops. Subject bus stops are on Junipero Avenue, northeast of 4th Avenue, in front of the gas station, 2 spaces on San Carlos Street, northeast of 10th Avenue, in front of Sunset Center, 1 space. Brandon, stage is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, City Council. I think we need to get it. There we go. Perfect. So I'm here to present a recommendation from our Traffic Safety Committee, which, as you probably all know, is made up of myself, the Director of Public Works, and the Chief of Police. So in early 2023, we received a request from Monterey Salinas Transit, also known as MST, to convert street parking in front of 2 bus stops to no parking. That's 2 stops total, 4 spaces total. The 2 spaces we're talking about are Junipero Avenue and 4th Avenue, which right in front of the gas station, there's an existing bus stop right there. And then San Carlos Street and 9th Avenue, just in front of Sunset Center, there's an existing bus stop there as well. What we would be looking to do potentially is remove the need for double parking. So when a bus parks there currently to pick people up, they have to park next to cars that are there, and create some pedestrian and traffic safety concerns. So that's what the Traffic Safety Committee was looking at in partnership with our friends at MST. So we had 2 meetings with the Traffic Safety Committee, one of which included a really fun site visit, actually. They brought a bus for a demonstration. We went around to the 2 sites in question and had a conversation with their driving, lead driving instructor, and Michelle Overmeyer, who was there as well and has participated through this whole time. So that was a great conversation. After thinking about and going out on site, the Traffic Safety Committee is recommending to you to follow the requested action from MST at the Junipero Avenue site to convert those 2 spaces. It is a busy commercial site. It does seem that taking those 2 parking spaces away so that the bus can completely not block any driveways is a good course of action. However, in front of Sunset Center, the Traffic Safety Committee is recommending conversion of only 1 space. It's a slight modification to MST's request. We feel it is okay for the bus to partially encroach into that driveway during pickup. The reason for that, it has a longer existing red curb, and I have pictures that I'm going to show you after this. The bus pickups are generally pretty short duration. There's a limited amount of parking lot traffic during the day at the Sunset Center. It's predominantly an evening site, and just the scarcity and demand of street parking in that area specifically. So we'll run through the sites really quick. This is the Junipero Avenue and 4th Avenue right in front of the gas station. You can see the red square there. That is the gas station on the right of the screen. This is heading northbound on the right-hand side there. You can see where the yellow arrow goes down. There is an existing bench right there. So this is currently a bus stop. And what happens right now is the bus, when they're picking up passengers there, has to stop and double park in front of those two vehicles. It creates a traffic safety. It creates an issue for pedestrians having to walk between those cars. And what it also doesn't allow for is the buses which kneel down to help those that need assistance getting on the bus to get closer to the curb for that. So it doesn't allow for that either. This is just looking downhill now. You can see it's the same site, just to give you some perspective. The second site, as I mentioned, is out in front of the Sunset Center on San Carlos. There is an existing bus stop right there. You can see the bench peeking out a little bit over the gray minivan. It's the same situation. When the bus is there, it has to double park. But as I mentioned, we are recommending only removing the one parking space that's currently occupied by that sweet looking minivan there. I love a good minivan. I don't know about you guys, but I will say that the red curb here, and this is the reason we're recommending, the red curb here is much longer. If you go back and look in front of this, there's very little red curb there. So we feel as a traffic safety committee, we can get away with just getting rid of one parking space at this point. The tail end of the bus may hang into that driveway, which is pretty wide to begin with. You can see looking back there. We did check. There's no laws prohibiting a bus that's picking up passengers to block part of a driveway. Our partners at MST did say, though, it is their best practice to not park any driveway or block any driveways, which is why they initially were requesting those two spaces, which would include that one taken by Chip's green Jeep there in front of the sweet minivan. But like I said, MST is the city is just recommending the one space for now. But MST is here, and I know Michelle would like to speak to you as well. So hopefully she can have a little bit of time after me. So basically that's it. We're approving recommend approving a recommendation from our traffic safety committee to convert those two spaces. One site would have two parking spaces converted to no parking. That would be the one in front of the gas station, and one would have one space converted. That'd be the one in front of Sunset Center. I'm available to answer questions, and like I said, Michelle is here as well to speak to the request and any questions you might have of a technical nature for her.
Any questions to bring by council members? I don't see any. All righty, we'll open up the public hearing portion then. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item?
Michelle's here.
Michelle?
You can speak first, that'd be okay.
Thank you, council members. Michelle Obermeyer. I'm the Director of Planning and Innovation for MST. I was going to pull up the picture, but I guess I won't.
What do you want up there?
I like the picture that you had of, maybe not that one, yeah. So public transit functions best when it comes often, when it's affordable, and it's easy to access or use. And use includes getting to the bus stop and getting on and off the vehicle. So MST is supportive of staff's recommendation at the Junipero bus stop at 4th Street. I appreciate the staff time that you spent with us going out there and reviewing that. It was Planning, Public Works, and the Police Department. The bus stop here at the Sunset Center, I think, deserves a little more consideration. Activity at this stop is currently higher in 2023 than it was in 2019. So in 2019, we saw 243 passenger boardings at this location. This year, between January and September, we had already seen 271 passenger boardings. So it is getting use. So we're requesting red curb at both of those parking spaces, the yellow greenish Jeep and the funky minivan, so that we can safely board and alight our passengers, and particularly those that use wheelchairs, walkers, or other mobility devices. Our standard is to be within 6 to 12 inches of the curb and parallel to the curb. This line 5 that serves this bus stop is served with a 35-foot bus. So the minimum amount of length that we would need to safely serve the stop is 40 feet, according to our safety training officer. Any less is considered unserviceable per our standard and would not be approved if it was a new bus stop that we were putting in. So the current nature of the stop is such that passengers can be hidden behind the parked cars and out of sight from the bus driver that's approaching. Or the driver might not feel comfortable stopping here and deploying the ramp for somebody to board with a walker. And this would lead to a pass-by, which means the driver just won't stop, they'll keep going. So the request is for red curb space for MST to safely board and alight passengers here. It would be consistent with the city's general plan. Objective 026 is encourage and participate in programs promoting alternative modes of transportation in Carmel. So I respectfully request that you consider approving both, changing both of those on-street public parking spaces to be no parking zones during the operating hours of MST so that we can provide quality service to your residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Are you requesting the 2 parking spaces rather than the 1?
Yes.
That's just what I wanted to.
What are the operating hours?
So line 5 is pretty heavily used. It operates weekdays from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Every 30 minutes we stop here. And then on weekends it's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. once an hour.
You have any other questions of Michelle? Okay. Open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak this item? Not seeing anybody.
There's no speakers on Zoom.
We'll bring it back to council for direction. So the question is, do we want to go ahead and augment the one at San Carlos and 9th is for Michelle's request? I'd be inclined to believe that that's probably a good idea.
Sorry?
I said I'd be supportive of that idea. I do think from a public safety standpoint, I think it makes more sense.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. You know, I think I had a conversation with Michelle about sort of, you know, what was the term Brandon used? Disabled access to the bus and the difficulty of getting the bus to the curb. And I think that there are problems, you know, at this particular spot, if you look at this picture, there are problems that with this bus stop because of that light pole and that telephone pole that prevent some of that access. So I would agree with the mayor.
I would concur as well.
And then do we have any problems with the other requests? I didn't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with the other. This one, I appreciate, though, that staff was trying to save us a spot. I very much appreciate that. But it seems like since it's going till 10 o'clock, it would put the Sunset Center in jeopardy when people are, you know, coming out of that parking lot if the bus is there and we have a busy show.
I hate to lose any parking, especially in this neighborhood, because we've heard in the past from residents who live on San Carlos and they have a hard time finding parking spaces, but it's a safety concern, so I'm okay with going along with the MST recommendation.
Okay, so then I'd move the approval of the request with the augmentation discussed on the San Carlos and 9th area with the additional space.
I'll second that.
Okay, I do have a comment, though. I wonder, would there be any way we could make some of those parking spaces there just a little smaller and repaint the things and eke out the 40 feet by doing that? Or is that pretty regulation?
Yeah, they're like 18 by 8, 18 by 9, those spaces. So we can look, we do it from the stop sign, which you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, council member. So I think they're pretty tight as it is, but we can.
I just think they look a little generous myself.
We always, you know, when we're doing annual painting, when we paint those, we could take a look, but I'm not convinced that we'd have enough space to have more than 2 parking spaces from the stop sign to the south.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion.
So it's 2 stops and two spaces and 2 spaces.
Two and two.
No,
Councilmember Baird?
Yes.
Councilmember Jeremoff?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll take a brief break. Is there anybody here for item number 6 and 7, the ones that are recommended for continuance? Somebody's waiting around for 6 and 7. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, The council to take items 6 and 7 out of order. They're recommending for continuance out of courtesy to those people that might still be here, thinking maybe we're going to get continued. So could we go ahead and do the presentation on that?
I would support it.
Well, you wouldn't have to have a presentation, Mayor, if you wanted to. If there's somebody is here to speak on the item.
No, I was saying, you want to read the item.
Okay.
So item 6 and item 7 are MA 23-146, Lopez and Fifth, Northwest LLC. Consideration of Mills Act contract. And the other one is MA 23-103, Cypress Inn, consideration of Mills Act contract application. So the recommendation is that those items be continued to date uncertain. Council, did you want to speak to that?
No, only that they're being continued. Staff and I are still doing some further research on those two items. So I don't know if there's members of the public that wanted to speak to the issue of the continuance or not.
Anybody want to speak to the continuance?
I'm representing Cypress Inn.
Do come forward, Gerard.
Sorry.
Not your first time.
I'm Gerard Rose. I represent Cypress Inn, and I have no objection to the continuance.
Okay, great, thank you. All right.
My name is Pierre Lecomte. I'm the owner of the house on Lopez Avenue, and I would love to have a decision today, just to be done with it and know if I don't really want to have to go back to my neighbors a month from now and 2 months from now again to distribute a little paper and everything, and to explain that I want a tax break so desperately. It's a bit humiliating. It's a waste of time and a waste of money. So if we could get a decision right now, it would be really, really great. Thank you.
And this might, well, not got a forecast, but might get the wrong decision, you know?
What's that, sir?
Amendment. Let's kind of give you a good caveat there. Okay, well, we'll bring it back to council for discussion. I'm in favor of the continuance, frankly, for both of them. Any other discussion?
So there should be a motion then, and I think you're going to need to make separate motions since they're two separate items.
Yeah. Although I move
Let's
it.
continue it.
Sam?
I need the continuance. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay, all right.
Oh, you want me to make a motion?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Can I make a motion that we continue items 6 and 7 to a date uncertain?
My advice was that we do them separately.
So can I make a motion that we continue item 6 to a date uncertain?
I'll second it.
We don't, so if we continue them to a date uncertain versus a date certain, then the applicants are going to have to do the noticing again?
Yes, but I think that's appropriate since we don't know for sure what the date is going to be.
We don't know for sure what the date's going to
Correct.
be. Okay.
Okay, so a motion, we have a second, where's Nova?
Do a roll call. I'll do the roll call, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Barron.
Yes.
Councilmember Dramoff.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards.
Yes.
And Mayor Potter.
Aye.
Yeah, the motion is unanimous and passes unanimously.
Can I make a motion that we continue items number 7 to a date uncertain?
Second.
So Mr. Richards made the motion. Mayor Potter has seconded the motion. Mr. Romero.
Okay. Councilmember Barron? Yes. Councilmember Jeremoff?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, so that'll, we appreciate that. So we can be dismissed. That'll then move us on to item number 4, which is MA 223-117 Griffin. Consider of Mills Act contract application MA 23-117 Griffin to restore for the historic Agnes Shoring House located on 3rd Avenue, 2 northwest of Cedarborough Avenue, in the single-family residential R1 district, APN number 010-108-007. Marnie.
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So the first Mills Act contract that is before you this evening is the Agnes Shorting House. It is located on 3rd Avenue, 2 northwest of Junipero. It was designed and built in 1927 by Frederick Bigland in the English cottage style. And it's also noteworthy for the detached garage that is constructed of thermotite, which was a locally produced cement building block here in Carmel. So this particular application was received in April of this year. In August, the Historic Resources Board reviewed the application and recommended that the City Council approve the contract. As we've talked about before, there are 5 findings that both the board and council must make in order to approve a Mills Act contract. And I'm going to go through those somewhat briefly, just because you have heard them before. So first is that the property is on the historic inventory and has been added to the Carmel Register. The application checks both these boxes. It was added to the inventory in 2005. And then this year it was added to the Carmel Register. The second finding has to do with the proposed rehabilitation plan. And that plan is included as an attachment to the staff report. The owners are proposing to invest over $265,000 over the next 10 years in maintaining and repairing their historic resource. A couple of the items include $60,000 for roof and gutter replacement, $20,000 for window and door repairs, and then another $20,000 to restore the original window shutters. Some photos of some of the other repairs to the chimney, some foundation work that needs to be done, exterior painting, window repair, door repair, and these are those original shutters, and the roof, and the stone fence, and the stoop. So a lot of maintenance and repair work, including removal of some non-historic features. So the third finding is that all past and future work will comply with historic preservation standards. This particular property does retain a high level